The weather was nice and I was enjoying the view.
Salon Tower, good morning. Foxtrot, Hotel Echo Sierra Tango. 1AS350, airborne from Aix-en-Provence to Le Mazet airfield. One person on board, requesting to cross your airspace.
Foxtrot, Hotel Echo Sierra Tango, good morning. Squawk 4471, request your current altitude, endurance, and report passing the radar alpha point, 1,500 feet, QH 1017.
Arriving abeam November Alpha Point, 1100 feet, QNH 1017, Foxtrot Hotel Echo Sierra Tango. Could you repeat the squawk, please?
Foxtrot Sierra Tango, squawk 4471, report Lima Papa, 1,700 feet. What is your endurance?
4471, reporting Lima Papa. About 1 hour.
Foxtrot Sierra Tango, roger. Expect transit via Lima Papa, 9 Echo, and Papa Sierra, 1,700 feet.
So, Lima Papa okay, but where is Mike Echo? Okay, Mike Echo, I got it.
Aviate, navigate, communicate. Modern equipment offers much information presented in a colourful and attractive way. However, this visual attraction may distract you from flying the aircraft and reduce the time that you are looking outside. The management of distraction and use of an effective scan are keys to maintain situational awareness. How much time do you spend looking outside?
Great, thanks. We can turn it off now. Obviously, Ari's not a professional actor, but it's not every day that a former World Rally Champion offers to do a video completely for free. So, we have a huge thanks to Ari for the effort, and particularly to the ESP and our colleagues who put the script together. So, if we can just a small round of applause to the team. Thanks. So, without further ado, we can move on to the start of the session, and our ARCOM chair, Tim Fauchon.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I just have a quick show of hands? Who's heard of the ARCOM? If you've not heard it before this week, please. So if you haven't heard about the ARCOM, put your hand up. Hey, pretty good. We're getting out there. Okay. Why is it important to you? Because if you're industry, we are your way into EASA. Now, I'm going to introduce quickly my fellow co-presenters, Clement Goudard from EASA, who is the EASA Secretary for the ARCOM, Gilles Brunel from Airbus Helicopters, who's the Vice Chair, and I have Jonathan Archer from Gamma, who is our engineer, going to speak on the engineering side. So there's a bit for everyone. So I will pass on to Clement to say how we came about.
Thank you, Tim. I just have the 2-3 slides to present the origin of this committee. So I know to cover the slot right after lunch with the origin of a committee is not an easy one. So the ARCOM is basically coming from the principle that can be found in the European treaties about good administration and transparency. These principles were translated into hard law by the EU Council and the Parliament in the Regulation 1139, which is called the New Basic Regulation, where it gave an obligation to the EASA Management Board to establish an advisory body representing the full range of interested parties affected by the work of the agency, which it shall consult prior to making decision. And this is the role of this committee. So this obligation was translated into our working procedure by the management board, and an advisory body was created. It's called the Stakeholder Advisory Body, and the ERCOM, Rotorcraft Committee, is one part of it. Just to give you a bit more of clarity of where we sit in terms of organization, so this is a very simplified version of the reality. We have a lot of groups advising EASA on a number of subjects. We just simplified this presentation to focus on the Rotorcraft aspects, going down from the EASA Management Board, the Stakeholder Advisory Body, the Rotorcraft Committee, which is connected and working with the General Aviation Committee, GACOM, and the ESPNR. So on this slide, you see a lot of abbreviations, but the goal is for you to be able to understand what it means by the end of the presentation. And the next presentation will cover the ESPNR, which is the next one. As I mentioned, ERCOM, Rotorcraft Committee, is the industry rotorcraft expert group for EASA. And it's the only one which is very specific for rotorcraft. We have one single group advising us on all aspects, going from the strategic development for rotorcraft to the priorities and content of the European Plan for Aviation Safety. They provide advice on implementation or standardization issues, but also international cooperation, risk assessment, risk management, providing data. So basically on all the tasks that the agency is performing, in addition to rulemaking, and bring new developments and issues to the attention of the agency. So this is a very short introduction on where the ERCOM and what has this obligation and tasks. I'm now giving back the floor to Gilles for the next slide of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Clément. Difficult after the lunch, and just before your flight back home. Okay, so who are we? You have seen with team. You have some people from the operator side. We are 25 in total. You have 10 people representing the operator, 8 nominated by the European Helicopter Association, and 2 nominated by European HEMS and Air Ambulance Committee. It's a balanced organization with the manufacturers, so I'm one of them, of course. So we are 7 from ASD, and formally I'm representing ASD in the Rotorcraft Committee, and we have also 2 members from Gamma, as Jonathan here today. We have also other organizations like training industry, aviation personnel, and a research body. We have decided, at the beginning there was no NAAA part of the group, but after discussions, we have realized that there would be an added value to have NAA as observers, because they have a lot of difficulties, and the operator have a lot of difficulties by having NAA applying the same rules in a different way in different countries. So now we invite NAA, and I think it's good for them because they can see really what are the difficulties of the operator and perhaps be more motivated to solve them. We also call and invite who we want, and this means we have all the EASA experts which come very often in the meeting to explain where we are in a rulemaking activity, in such rulemaking activity or another one. We have also industry experts, or we can call for experts for safety, depending on what are the topics that we want to discuss. We have also set up a safety analysis group, which is a little bit the follow-up of what we call the EHSAT a couple of years ago, to look at the accident of occurrences. And there is, before each ERCOM, half a day where people analyze data from accident. So what drives us? The European Plan for Aviation Safety. So for me, there was 2 new things in this plan compared to what was existing a couple of years ago. The first very important thing is the name. Before, I think it was the European Aviation Safety Plan. Now it's a European Plan for Aviation Safety. Very important difference. Now the second one is more important for me, is that we have a nice helicopter on the pictures. So it's not only a big book for fixed-wing commercial aircraft, it's also something useful for helicopter business and helicopter safety. And as David presented yesterday the strategic safety roadmap, I think one of the important things will be that the strategic roadmap will feed the next aviation safety plan. And so our role is to advise and to give some recommendation for having an aviation safety, European plan for aviation safety going in the right direction. Some statistics, and I think John will come back on it. So, but just to, and it was already addressed a little bit by David for the Rotorcraft safety roadmap. But if you look at the number of fatal accidents in Europe, we have, as it was said, a lot of accidents in flight training, too many. We have a lot of accident or fatal accident in a non-commercial operation, private pilot, general aviation. Of course, we have still some accident in commercial air transport, and the idea was to focus more on small operator in the future. We have, if you look at the picture in detail, you will see that there are also a lot of SPO, different SPO activity where we have a fatal accident. And in the short future, we will work on the safety analysis on HEMS operation, and after on SPO operation to have a clear figure on what we should do on this different type of operation for improving safety. Tim, you for the HOPSAPs.
So what are we doing on a safety side? We're looking at all the other ops, and there is an MPA out there or in formation, and it may give the commercial operator chance to have a lower decision height than we have with ILSs or something like that. So there may be a bonus out there for commercial operators. We've already talked about H-Tours next door, flight data recorders for the lighter end of the market, HUMS, yes. It'll be very interesting to see whether the HUMS data from Leicester City crash showed up. Was there anything on the HUMS data? We wait to see. The Puma in the North Sea? No. So are we getting HUMS right? Are we analysing it? Is it collecting what we want? Planning fuel management, the latest fuel planning MPA went down very well with the larger types in the North Sea. And weather, electronic access. That is in the roadmap. Does the GA pilot know how to get hold of the latest weather on his iPad or his phone, more likely? UK, what we've done. London, you can go to the Met Office website now, and it shows you on a traffic light system, green, amber, and red, whether the weather is fit over London. Very powerful when you want to show your VIP that it's red. I can't go to London today with you in the back because it's red. Do you get that? It takes the pressure off the pilot a little bit. Level the playing field. That's what we're always trying to do. Except you heard it, my question yesterday, maybe you're next door, common list of high-risk SPO activities across the NAAs. At the moment, say you're building a pylon that goes from Germany into Switzerland, you've got to put in a couple of safety cases at least. Maybe it may not be in the same language. It will have different requirements. Why? Because the list of SPO activities is different in every nation. I'm going to be blunt here. EASA bottled it. They didn't sit the NAAs in a room, hit them over the head, and come out of that room with one list. Scandinavian countries did it. 4 of them got together. We may not like what they came up with. They came up with a harder list maybe than the operators want, because everyone got what we wanted, but at least you're working with one list between 4 countries. You Americans don't know what it's like having to work with 28 nations. You've just got one authority. You may not like it, and I know he's at the back of the room. Sorry about that. Okay. Capped by single-engine helicopters in a hostile congested area. There's an ICAO group, I think, that's been working for 2 years, and they can't get it agreement yet. There is a big disparity between North America and what we do in Europe. We need to get the international playing field level and then maybe move into Europe to try and get it level. We got to understand, at times, there cannot be a common rule set for all sectors. When you have Norway that has some days when the sun does never set, yet in winter there's hardly any daylight in northern Norway, one FTL scheme across the board does not work. Everyone has a thing. I think the MPA for the HEMS FTL had 1,300 responses, largely all critical. Doesn't mean to say we should stop, and I would look, and I've heard it, that maybe the EHA, HEMS working group, might like to put out a paper on what is good practice. Don't ignore it, just try and get the good practice in. Rulemaking. Looking at the age in the room, age 60, single pilot cat. Would you rather have a 25-year-old flying you as a cat or someone who's 61 with years of experience, who probably does marathons? I know where I want to sit. However, there's advances in medical that maybe, yeah, we're going to have to put some restrictions on it, but why shouldn't we? There is a big demographic coming where we're going to run out of commercial pilots, probably. What's your choice? Go and fly in the North Sea with a co-pilot, go and fly SPO, or become an instructor. But why should you give up your job with the police or in a HEMS single pilot operation? We wait to see. However, don't hold your breath. I'm led to believe you've got to be about 54 before EASA will move the rules. However, there are 9 European nations out there with exemptions in place. 2 crew, CPL, to crew a helicopter normal certified for single pilot ops. Eric covered it yesterday very nicely. MPA out very soon. However, again, we will not see probably anything in law until, I reckon, next year, the end of next year at the very best. Doesn't mean to say that you can't get your NAA to write you an exemption. My NAA has just written one in advance. Single engine, I come back to single engine again. Yeah, are we working with historic data? I have members of my association that are hitting me over the head every day and trying to work out what the NAA, what data they are working with. Is it historic data? Is the threat what you think it is? HEMS MPA, it's coming out. It's going to be full of good practice. That is the general MPA. We should hopefully be able to define what the technical crew member does, what training he needs, other stuff. It's not going to have the FTL in it. Evidence-based training, I'm not going to touch that. We had a very good lecture on it next door. That is the North Sea. Where are we going to go with the onshore world? The smaller operators. That will probably, and I'm right in the EPAS, that part of the evidence-based training is going to be somewhere around 2027 at the earliest. And FTL for other helicopter sectors, something that we haven't had. You have to say, do we have a problem? Personally, I don't think. I haven't seen any accident report recently that says fatigue was a problem. Certainly not in Europe. Now, you can fire back at me afterwards. I'm not saying it is not the case in other countries. Or maybe the investigation board chose not to go there. The future, where I see us going. Nope, I've gone too far. Oh, we're missing a slide. Okay, the future, where am I? Sorry, I've come out of order. Next is Jonathan. My last slide, I'll be up last.
Thanks, Tim. Good afternoon. As both Tim and Gilles explained, there's two parts to the way the ARCOM works, operations and obviously the design and manufacturing perspective, which I represent. There's two aspects to the way we engage, obviously as part of a team, but then as a more dedicated design and manufacturing sub-team. I'll quickly look at the purpose and scope for that. And a very quick summary of the activities and issues that we've been working, or we will be working over the coming months. So how do we engage? As Gilles said, that the designer manufacturers have two groups, Gamma, who I represent, and ASD, who are represented by 5 or 6 other companies, who are representing the airframe OEMs, engine, and major systems and equipment suppliers. We only have 2 seats, or we only have 9 seats in total, but we represent through our membership a very broad range and many, many other companies who provide input and discussion to the working papers and comment and feedback we provide both directly into EASA and then through the ARCOM as well. We provide not only an association position, but we also try and provide support to operation and maintenance issues that are discussed as part of the broader proceedings of the committee. As I said, we represent a significant number of other organizations. We try and facilitate and provide a single voice perspective of certification airworthiness issues, whether they be process focused or very specific to rotorcraft systems and components. We coordinate those, we provide that focus, whether it's both all for or partially against, to make sure that we can provide focused thoughts, consideration, and what would be best practice or generally best for the industry rather than for one individual organization. As was both discussed by EASA and FAA yesterday, which refers to the industry report on the evolution of 27 and 29 into more performance-based rulemaking and approaches to certification to make it more flexible, to introduce technology and consider a broader range of products that have now entered the market. Up until Monday, we were waiting a response to that report. On Monday, we were fortunate to provide an advanced feedback on the authority's approach to modernization and revision of the current regulations into a more performance-based approach. That's as much as I can say, because over the coming months, we'll be working together to determine how we proceed with developing a roadmap of those ideas and what the future of certification could look like for GA and transportation. Initially, it's going to focus on GA, Part 27, because that's unfortunately where there are an awful lot of accidents and seen to be most need for change. So one of the ways that we provide input into discussions within the committee are using industry working papers, white papers. It's the easiest way we can provide a concern, proposed thoughts on mechanisms of resolution, and be able to debate and discuss around a focused topic rather than just general discussion, which tends to become very broad and defeats the focus of what we're trying to achieve. One of the first papers that we prepared and have completed and submitted was a loads under fire condition test. That was raised by one organization that we then subsequently found other manufacturers had similar issues. That's the aim, is to try and find consensus and find where we can improve safety without increasing cost and simplify certification. There's now 4 other white papers, performance charts 1 and 2, that's under development. Height and velocity diagram concept, challenging the current certification. Use of cargo in the cabin. Icing certification. And a new one we've just started is composite seat certification. Another aspect of the working with collaboratively between the associations are issues of harmonization. It's no good directing EASA down a particular path that we know Transport Canada or FAA will have contention with. It's better to try and find where the middle ground is and work with all three organizations rather than just be focused on one. So in that vein, industry reviews the bilateral agreements that EASA has with FAA, with Transport Canada, and with ANAC of Brazil. The latest one, the EASA FAA Technical Implementation Process version 6, had a list of safety emphasis items or differences between the regulatory systems between those two organizations. That is currently has been reviewed. We've submitted our comments, and the agencies are now all working to review those comments and determine whether all of the items that were identified are truly differences or whether they're just differences in interpretation. So there's a whole list of miscellaneous issues that have cropped up outside of ARCOM, but we use the ARCOM to help shape those issues with the authorities to determine whether it's specifically an EASA issue or whether it's just an FAA issue or whether it's a concatenation of EASA, FAA, and Transport Canada. One of the latest ones is lithium batteries that are installed in TSO'd equipment. They're approved, they go on for installation, and then there's issues raised of whether that lithium battery should undergo more detailed and more finite testing. We're talking about button batteries. We're not talking about main ship or secondary ship batteries. So it's an issue, disproportionate. We've discussed a number of presentations about the safety continuum or proportionality of using 271309. That's, again, has been a significant point of discussion. Again, we're looking to seek harmonized positions from both FAA and EASA. It simplifies the efficiency in certification if we can. We've also taken part in the 2 FAA ARACs on bird strike and occupant protection, and we continue to look at those recommendations and work with the authorities of how best to implement those appropriately and proportionately. Ditching, a significant issue, both from a design and manufacturing and an operator's perspective. It's an issue, it isn't resolved. A very new issue has come up is the Class 1 tours for offshore operations. Industry has perhaps some different perspectives of what originally was framed by the authorities. We're not necessarily disagreeing, we may be just proposing that the solutions that have been offered may be too directive and may not necessarily propose the best solution for future implementations. And finally, external hoists. It's a challenge. Everybody wants to use them. We're just trying to look at the best way that they're certified and most practically brought into service. Tim.
Yeah, the hoist is a very interesting one. The initial thought it was a design problem. Industry pushed back and said, actually, it's an operation problem. It's people who neglect them, then get them out the cupboard and think they're going to work. Do you look after your cable well? So it's good that we have a room with engineering experts and operators in, and we can bounce ideas up. The future, where are we going to go? It's great having the NEAs with us. It would be really good if you got them to have a little meeting on the side, and then we could have a meeting together at the end and discuss issues that we need to wear with each other. We've got 9 so far. I think we're the only COM that has them. We've even bothered to invite. But there's no point in us going somewhere if the NEAs are then going to squash it. Why? Probably because they have a more powerful voice than us. They set the rules when it comes down to it. Better liaison with the GACOM. The roadmap only needs to show you that the Rotorcraft roadmap mainly looks at the light end of the market. That's where the accidents and the fatalities are happening. It shows you. So we need to have better liaison. What's not on the slide is ADSB. 3 fatal mid-air collisions involving helicopters in the last year. Not saying ADSB is the solution, but I was shown one that fitted to your windscreen that size. Why? Because it needs to fit on a microlight with no power source. You think about it. We have gliders out there with FLAM on, but it doesn't talk to you in a TCAS 2 commercial helicopter. We've all got to be on one system, and we don't need to go down, without being rude, the American route where you have to have TSO and all your equipment, your fit needs to be. If it's good enough to 50 meters and you know the other thing is out there, let's do it. The mid-air in UK, the flight ops, head of flight ops said, I saw it happen on my phone 30 minutes after it happened. If he can do that on his mobile phone, we should be able to get some form of collision avoidance into the cockpit. We are going to be busy. The new basic regulation is tied to the next one. There are going to be limits on the rule-making capacity. If you don't know Eric, he does his best, Eric Bennett, but he is snowed under. And there's going to be all those implementing regulations to do with the new basic regulation. And at present, David, correct me if I'm wrong, there's been no uplift in manpower in EASA to do it. So it's going to come out the rulemaking. The Rotorcraft Safety Roadmap implementation and oversight, I only need to look at the presentation and see how many times it said ARCOM is going to oversee this. So we are going to be there driving, and we need to do it in company with the GACOM, because we can't go after the GA pilot without their agreement. I'm not saying go after, but look at initiatives that incentivizes them to improve safety. If it affects their wallet, they need some form of incentive to do what you want them to do. And the last thing is, it was supposed to have Uncle Sam up there with the big finger. The ARCOM is your way into EASA as a manufacturer of anything or a person. Talk to us, we're on the stage. And by the way, I hope to see you at Vertical Flight, which is Helitech, at Farnborough, November next year. Come and support us.